פרופסור ריצ'רד אפשטיין הוא מגדולי חוקרי המשפט בעולם, ומדורג כחוקר החמישי הכי מצוטט בכל הזמנים. בדרך כלל הוא אינו מתערב בנעשה בישראל, אך ההתגייסות של השמאל בעת האחרונה נגד הרפורמות המשפטיות החדשות הוציאו אותו משתיקתו.
No system of these particular sort does the judiciary have the kind of power that it is arrogated unto itself in Israel.
אפשטיין נחשב לאחד המוחות המבריקים בדורנו ולמשפטן משפיע מאוד בקרב מקבלי ההחלטות. הנימה החריפה בדבריו חריגה.
I don't believe there's any other system on the face of the globe that is anything like what Israel said. And so, in effect, to say that you are going to lose democracy in Israel if you move back to the way other system runs, is to say that the warped Israeli system is the only democratic system on the face of the earth. This is Orwellian. This is not, in effect, any serious argument. I'm utterly stunned to hear that people are actually making arguments which I regard as so utterly frivolous.
הכל מתחיל לדעתו במהפכה השיפוטית שהובילה אהרן ברק.
I am aware of no constitution that has been created by the misconstruction of innocent statutes by a judiciary who has a self-interest in order to entrench itself. And so that what you really do is to say, as a fundamental matter of natural law, if what the Supreme Court in Israel does is to give itself extra power by misreading statutes, that's a usurpation. That is not the creation of a constitution. It's the creation of an illegitimate hierarchy of people who should know better in terms of their role. And what the Israeli Supreme Court did, and I think it's mainly the work of Aaron Barak, is that they simply said, I'm smarter than everybody else, which he's not. And then what he does is he posts something which is completely unwise.
אם צריך למנות את החולאים של המערכת הישראלית, שיטת מינוי השופטים נמצאת באחד המקומות הראשונים.
It's a self-perpetuating cartel in which the dominant faction inside the Supreme Court gets to veto anybody who doesn't come in. I regard that as absolutely blatant disregard of all kinds of democratic principles, because what it does is, instead of creating a rotation in office, which will be subject to some extent to a political check, it creates the court as a completely self-contained situation. And I'm not aware of any other place in the world in which it turns out that sitting judges have such an enormous influence with respect to the choice. And they say, well, you're anti-democratic. No, I think what happens is you're actually anti-authoritarian, given the way in which they want to put this particular system together.
אחד השינויים הנידונים כעת הוא פסקת ההתגברות. אפשטיין לא מבין על מה המהומה.
There's nothing whatsoever about the theory of democratic politics which says that a temporary override for 5 years by a simple majority is in fact necessarily going to violate democratic principles.
כוחו של היועץ המשפטי לממשלה בישראל, המכהן גם כראש התביעה, מטריד את אפשטיין מאוד.
What that does is it actually increases the risk of political upset, because a single man unrestrained by anybody else can essentially upend the entire political situation by selective prosecution against his enemies and selective protection in favor of his particular friend.
ללא ביקורת שיפוטית וייעוץ משפטי עצמאי, נוותר עם עיקרון שלטון הרוב בלבד, ותו לא. דמוקרטיה בשם, אך לא במהות.
The real danger in Israel is that you have an attorney general who's simpatico with respect to the dominant faction on the Supreme Court. What you do is you have a real threat to democracy.
ומה לגבי ביקורת שיפוטית? האופן שבו בית משפט יכול לבטל או להתערב בהחלטות הוא מורכב.
It is a perpetual question as to how much judicial review that you want in any kind of a situation. But the thought that there's only one solution, the current one that you have in Israel, as the optimal solution, is simply to ignore the history of the Western world and everywhere else when it comes to these situations. You're doing is you're having this kind of Orwellian world is which the people who are most a dangerous threat to a democratic set of institutions announce that they're the sole defenders of democracy, and that anybody who believes in a division of power in the conventional organization, going way back to Aristotle and to Roman law, I mean, this is not something which is there, and they say, well, we know better than those guys. Israel will be a better place, more compatible with democratic institutions, if they could change this particular thing.